First Chapter Friday. What is it? And 4 reasons why you should give it a try. First Chapter Friday is a reading engagement strategy disguised as a fun weekly activity. In its most basic elements, First Chapter Friday is when someone reads aloud the first chapter of a book in an effort to interest students in a particular story and/or increase enthusiasm for reading. It works for any grade level, but is particularly successful for grades 4 through 12. If you're looking to have more students with books in their hands, more readers excited about the selections presented to them, and overall more enthusiasm when it comes to just plain reading, keep watching this video because it is jam-packed not only with 4 reasons why you should give First Chapter Fridays a try, but also tons of ideas for implementation. Alright, reason number 1, First Chapter Fridays motivate your students with more than just a title and a book cover. Despite the saying, we all judge a book by its cover. But is a book cover, or an author's name or title for that matter, really enough? Sometimes we need to get into a story a little bit before we can decide if it's going to be something we'll like. First Chapter Fridays give your students the opportunity to try on a book in a low-stakes, low-effort endeavor. All they have to do is sit back and listen. You can also use this opportunity to sell a book. Some sales pitch points you might share could include an interesting fact about the author that students might connect with. Is this author an immigrant? Did she grow up in the Midwest? Did he want to be a professional athlete when he was in middle school? Or you can promote the book's genre, the awards, or the fact that it is the first in a series. Anything you can tell students that might pique their interest or curiosity, shout it out and you might just hook a reader. Reason number 2 to give First Chapter Fridays a try, it's an opportunity to educate yourself on the great titles available. We are living in a golden age of kidlit. As a person who has been alternating her reading selections between adult and middle grade and YA books for years, I can tell you the quality of work these authors are producing is grade A good stuff. And if you haven't taken the time to browse what current authors have to offer, you are missing out. A couple of years ago, I taught a Foundations of Literacy course to students in the education department who were gearing up for their student teaching experiences. I was shocked when their practice lessons revolved around books like Caps for Sale, which was published in 1940, and authors like Dr. Seuss, who died almost 30 years ago. Now, there's nothing wrong with the classics, but seriously, how about engaging kids with books that were written in the century, let alone decade? Especially when there are so many good ones. I understand that teachers are busy humans and it's hard to do all the things. If reading multiple middle grade and young adult books isn't making it to the top of your list, don't sweat it. I've got you covered. I'm someone who reads a lot of books like these, and I taught middle school for 12 years. Not to mention I happen to live with a 9 and 11-year-old. I'm in the know and I can help you. All of the books I share on my channel are ones I'd recommend, and if there are any trigger warnings you should be aware of before showing them in class, like content or swearing or tough topics, I let you know in the description so you can make a decision about whether or not a video or a book is a good fit for you and your students or your readers. But you don't have to just rely on me. You can talk to fellow teachers, walk around a bookstore, browse recent award lists. There are many ways you can find good books to share with your students for First Chapter Fridays. And by educating yourself, you're educating your students on great reading material as well. Reason number 3, you can get to know the authors. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know any writers. To me, it felt like authors lived in a magical fantasy land far, far away. These storytellers didn't feel like real humans to me until I became a writer myself and started meeting them at conferences and attending their webinars online. Growing up as a kid in the 80s and 90s was great, but I envy the access kids today have to celebrities of all kinds, including authors. Knowing the creator of a story and knowing they are a real person and this is really their job can open up an entirely new experience for readers of all ages. Through First Chapter Fridays, you can highlight the author of each book and inform your students about them as a person and about their writing process. You'd be surprised how this information can really pull a reader in. A quick Google search will provide you with tons of tidbits you can share with your students, and YouTube offers a buffet of interviews as well. Here's a list of interview videos I've curated for you. I'm adding author interviews to my channel all the time, but as of right now, when I film this video, here's who I have already lined up for you to listen to. Kimberly Brubaker-Badley, Lisa Phipps, Helen Frost, Regina LaRocca, Jarrett Lerner, Kate Messner, Jennifer A. Nielsen, Margie Price, Christina Suntorvat, Chad Sell, Wendelin Van Dranen, and Lisa Weimer. Pretty amazing, right? To have all of these authors in your classroom would cost thousands of dollars, but I've curated their interviews for you and you can bring them to your students for free. And finally, reason number 4, First Chapter Fridays make for a great subplan. Sub days are hard, and they often end up on Fridays. Have you noticed that? As the primary teacher, you want to make it as easy as possible for both your sub and your students, but also as productive as possible. If you instill the habit of First Chapter Fridays in your classroom, the students can be on autopilot for the sub and you can leave knowing they are still getting good stuff and are likely behaving because A, they know exactly what to do, and B, they enjoy First Chapter Fridays. If you use one of my videos, you don't even have to make the sub read aloud. And if you pick one with an author interview, you can have an extended learning experience. Grab one of the student engagement worksheet packs from the description box, and you can even check on which kids you should follow up with if they showed interest in this week's book. So are you convinced? Are you ready to give First Chapter Fridays a try? If it feels like a big undertaking to commit to doing something once a week for an entire school year, don't worry. If you aren't sure which titles to pick or where to start, or maybe you are less than confident about your own read aloud abilities, remember, I've got you covered. I love reading aloud. Truly, it was one of my favorite parts of each school day. But there were times I wasn't feeling well or my voice was shot, and reading aloud to 5 different classes was just plain painful. Been there? Never fear. No matter where you find yourself on the ready, not ready spectrum, I've got almost 40 titles for you to choose from. And by the end of the year, 2021, I'll have 52 books, one for each week of the year. If you need some initial ideas or find yourself needing a break, just check my playlist, pick one and go. Or maybe you alternate, letting me read to some classes and you read to others. There's no shame in taking a little help. And if it's a book you haven't read before, you can cheat by listening to me book talk it first, so then you can show up to your class looking like a pro. Before we go, I want to leave you with a few final ideas for implementation. As you read or listen to the video, allow students to create mini sculptures of Play-Doh in the shapes of symbols and objects related to the story they're listening to, and then when you're done, let them explain their shapes to their classmates. To prevent unrelated daydreaming and off-task behavior, you can use these worksheets that I've created to create student engagement while listening. You can allow students to submit requests for First Chapter Friday titles or audition to be a First Chapter Friday reader so they can feel even more involved in this activity. And finally, you could try sketch notes. Tell the students to draw and doodle while they listen to the story being read aloud. Afterward, ask them to share their results, or just talk about them if they're self-conscious about their drawing skills, as a way to review the story elements introduced in the first chapter. Alrighty, I think you have all you need to start this impactful weekly reading experience in your classroom, but if you have any other questions, drop them in the comments below and I'll be sure to answer them. If you're already a First Chapter Friday pro and you have more implementation ideas for this book hooking strategy, please share them in the comments as well. Happy reading! Please like this video and subscribe so you can stay connected to more great content and videos from me, the word nerd, Amanda Zieba. Also, don't forget to check the description box for links to my newsletter and freebies.